If somebody asked for my advice, I'd say stop chasing money and stop chasing titles to any incoming young professional. I think those are just short-term interests. And in the end, I see the industry having a lot of those chasing money, chasing titles, and it creates a negative long-term situation. You might have a project executive on a project that has a title but doesn't have the skill set. They don't earn the respect of their team. So you kind of set them up for failure already from day one by giving them a title when they don't have a skill set. We just happen to know that a mechanical engineer in a project had a huge backlog of tasks across different clientele. And we just called them and I said, hey, listen, I know you're in a crunch. Tell me what we can do to help relieve your load for this week and maybe provide you some information that you normally would have got yourself by coming to the field. And they really appreciated that. So that's an example of working together as a team, understanding that you can't be in that silo and you have to help each other out. And hopefully they reciprocate that the next time we call. That reciprocity is important rather than kind of being self-absorbed, dealing with your own issues every single day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Design Development, your hub to learn direct from top performers in real estate development, design, and construction. I'm your host, Renz Hayes, founding partner of H&O Lifelong Learner, and I am personally obsessed with high-powered organizations and the leaders that guide them. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for joining us. And if you're a returning listener, can't thank you enough. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Enzo Scalora. He's the president and CEO of Scalora Consulting Group. They're an owner's rep. They have a couple offices, primarily outside of Greater Boston, a satellite office in Nashville. Enzo, I've come to appreciate him as a leader and a business owner. He is someone, when I talk to him, I know he understands business. I know he's a lifelong learner. He's looking at things objectively and finding ways to improve. He's creating trust in his culture. He's a people-first leader. They're a certified B corporation where they're balancing, obviously, the company profit, but also the type of impact they have on the community around them. There's a lot to learn from Enzo's story. He went to WPI. He did get an MBA. He worked in construction, but he always knew he wanted to be a business owner because his father moved from Italy to the United States and opened a barber shop. So he was kind of an entrepreneur from day one, but again, I appreciate Enzo as a leader and I'm happy to share his story and I know you're going to appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Enzo Scalora. Please join me in welcoming Enzo Scalora. Enzo, how we doing?
Good. How you doing, Renz? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I'm excited for today's conversation. In our past conversations, I immediately picked up on your leadership awareness and your awareness of just general organizational structure and balance. And I really look for that in other leaders. So I'm excited to share that with everyone today.
Awesome.
Could you tell us a little bit about Scalora Consulting Group?
Yeah, so Scalora Consulting Group is an owner's project manager, owner's representative. We launched just under 3 years ago. We service several different market sectors: healthcare, life sciences, developer-led work, corporate, private academic, and nonprofit. And as an owner's rep, you act to support clients and protect their interests, clients that either don't have the expertise in building or don't have the staff to build. So we step in their shoes, bring all the options to the table. They make the final decisions, and we collaborate with the architects, engineers, and contractors to help bring them a successful project.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. You're helping clients, several different markets, but it's clients that don't have the experience to know how the design and the construction process works. You can be absolutely brilliant in your field, but if you've never designed a building, you don't know what you're walking into, right?
Exactly. And sometimes it's a little scary for some clients who do it just once, right? They don't have the experience. And in general, design and construction can have some risk factors. So to bring in a company that has done thousands of projects across different markets, they bring that extra level of certainty and support. So been doing this for 17 plus years now, and we've been pretty busy.
It's a lot of experience. And you also mentioned companies that might not have the staff. Could you share a little insight there? There's companies that are doing their own development. So this is commercial real estate. Is it schools? What type of people don't have the staff?
It could be various sectors, but generally clients that go through cyclical patterns of building projects or renovating or building new, they don't want to hire full-time people and then have a downturn of projects and then have to figure out how to reutilize those people or lay them off. So they supplement with outsourced personnel. So we kind of fill the gap on cyclical project related issues. Could be on a yearly basis where some clients do summer slammers and they bring us in for academic summer slammers, or it could be every few years they have peaks in capital projects and they want to supplement some of the internal staff.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the summer slammers. My exposure to academic world, you realize how hectic the summers just are because you have to be open for the school year.
Correct.
There's no movement of that deadline. It's not, hey, can I have another week? There is absolutely no movement, so it can be hectic.
It wears on some folks, especially when you get the superintendents in the field and the subcontractors having to put all this work in place in 3 months.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know from my experience in the construction world, my background, structural steel and missile, I appreciate the design industry. It's a lot less hectic. You have a lot more control of your outcome or how your week's going to flow. And in construction and building, your week, you could think you have everything planned, and that will change the second you step into the office or on the job site.
But does also impact the design side, right? Because if there problems exist on the job site during the summer slammers, you may not have predicted those things, all the time. So you get drawn in. So you're working on one thing one day, and all of a sudden you get a question that requires you to get down to the field. So it kind of disrupts your week, right?
You're absolutely right. It happens. It's a lot less though.
Yeah, no doubt, no
A lot
doubt.
less. So what's the risk that someone faces when they don't have an owner's rep? Like, can they do it without you? What's the risk?
Yeah, I think what we see is when we get involved late in the game, usually if you bring us on early, we can have a bigger impact on many different fronts organizationally, from just cost side, schedule side. But as we get into projects later in the game, what we find is most of the projects have some team dynamics that aren't working, right? So that you have to hit reset and try and solve those. You have projects that have significant schedule issues. So to recoup, those delays becomes more challenging. You have budget overruns. So now you got to get into this vicious cycle of how do you save money and cut costs. Then that impacts redesign potentially. So those are what we see probably almost 100% of the time we get involved at like construction document phase or in construction. So we try and promote bringing us in as early as possible, even if it's just a light touch project management, so we can create some organizational structure, some best practices, get the team working cohesively and effectively together, get the owner to have some structure on the governance side so that the team can get quick decisions when they need quick decisions. So we're a big promoter of getting in early. But again, it's up to the client when they bring us in. It varies.
The term value engineering is thrown around a lot, and value engineering is an extremely valuable service, but I also think of it as like solving a problem that could have been prevented, right? If you're value engineering down the later in the design process or the construction process, it means you had a few missteps before.
Right.
So if we pride ourselves on just coming back and always value engineering, that means we're not actually getting to the root cause. So bringing someone like yourself in the beginning allows you to avoid that misstep so we can streamline design and construction.
Yeah, we're a big promoter of minimizing value engineering at the end of a design phase. Right now, I think the industry is in a cycle where we're spending a lot of time at the end of design development, for example, and just trying to value engineer because you're over budget, right? And the idea is to stay within that budget as close as possible. You are going to have your overruns, but you want to minimize the impact of redesign. So what we try and do is continuously bring the design team, the contractor team to the table and make those informed decisions during the various phases of designs before you even put significant pen to paper as a design team. So for example, if we know, the AV system is going to have a cost overrun, and we can already look at different types of AV systems and have that conversation and do some high level order of magnitude pricing before you start designing the AV systems. Great, that's a win, right? Or if you can put in an alternate design package so that the designer knows going in, yeah, we may have a significant overrun, but we want to test the market in our base design, and here's an alternate approach that'll save us a bunch of money. We want to price both, right? So you're going in very structured in terms of a strategy. And that's our approach to minimize VE during the end of design. Do it as part of the process.
We're making informed decisions
Right.
throughout, so we don't have
Right.
to turn back around. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to make the cheapest choice, right? It
Exactly.
means we're going to
Exactly.
make the best, we're going to allocate our capital so that it generates the most value in the development.
Correct. Correct.
Setting budgets, I imagine, is a really challenging effort to do, especially with a client that's not exposed to building and construction. If I think of my own personal experience, I've worked in design and construction for my entire career, built estimating process. I know what stuff generally costs. I built a house last year, and people, you're like hesitant to share what your budget is because I didn't know what my budget should be,
Right.
and I didn't want to give too big of a budget. So the architect would design all this higher
Right.
end stuff. Like I was like, how do I communicate amongst all the finishes and the services? It's a really challenging conversation.
It is. We do believe in transparency. You have to give the architect and the team to design to something, right? Because then you can't come back and try to hold them accountable. Hey, you over designed. Well, you didn't tell me what you wanted the budget to be, right? So there's a couple ways to tackle that. A lot of times early on, we'll set budget targets and ranges, low and high. This kind of gives you a little more flexibility. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll give the client an order of magnitude budget. They like it, but at the end, you want to prevent overruns. So you might discount it and say, hey, architect, we want you to design to 90% of this budget, right? So we put some constraints on that because we know that generally costs escalate during the design and construction process. So we try and discount it early on to set expectations.
Nice. Does your company have anything to do with the financials in a development for your clients in terms of understanding and communicating how much cash or capital they might need versus connecting them with bank partners? Is that a part of your role as an owner's rep?
Typically, we stay away from how they raise money. There are a couple situations where we connect them with some of our partner firms. For example, our local bank here, we connected them with a small developer that's doing some visionary work or wants to do some visionary work. And luckily for him, they gave him a line potentially up to 25 million in terms of debt capacity. So that launched into like 50% of his debt to equity that he needed. So that happens very, very little though. We're not a development manager. We don't fundraise. We don't support any of the financial side of things.
Makes sense. And we have a shared history, both fellow WPI grads. I had a good time there. You found your way into the owner's rep
Yeah.
career. Who was an early influence? Like, what led you to civil engineering at WPI?
So early in my young life, prior to high school and college, one of my family members was a civil engineer, and I actually wanted to start my career in architecture. I immediately evolved into the engineering side when I just saw the type of work that he did, and I jumped into civil engineering at WPI. Funny enough, at the end of my third year, I said I don't want to be a civil engineer. So my advisor was like, "Well, it's a little late in the game for that, right?" But with civil engineering at WPI, you have a construction management component, which I had been studying. So I then just kind of pivoted to the construction management side of things. I wanted to work with people.
Mm-hmm. The civil engineering degree, even from when I was in college, I was like, this really needs to be broken out into separate degrees. It covers like six disciplines. And on the certificate at the end of
Yeah,
your college career, it all says the same thing. And
yeah,
your coursework or actual knowledge is what separates you, right?
yeah. I agree with you there. I think they try and lump everything into one thing, and I think there needs to be some more specialization, I think, in terms of the
Yeah.
degree.
So civil engineering is initially what brought you in there, and throughout college is when you recognized construction management was more your thing.
Yeah, I wanted to work with people, deal with the management side, process improvements, just generally be out in the field and see things get put together. Um, and I didn't want to crunch numbers or actually do the physical engineering, if you will. I was just like,
Yeah.
just tired of math and everything like that. So let's move on. And I really had a mind more for business. I saw myself moving in the future towards the business aspect than the operational construction aspect.
What gave you that insight so early? You're in college, you know you're drawn to business. Like what, any experience there that kind of
Well,
triggered
I
that?
mean, I come from a family, my father, extended family members that are business owners. So, it was kind of part of my growing up. And I just kind of picked it up little by little here and there.
What kind of business is your father's
Oh,
business?
my father's since 11, he was a barber in Sicily, and he brought it here, and now he's 75, and he's still doing that, right?
Oh, amazing. I
Yeah.
love that.
So he didn't speak the language, came here, worked a little bit in construction, and then evolved into starting a business with a partner. Then divested from that, did his own thing, and he's been a barber since he was 11 years old.
Wow, an entrepreneur at heart,
Yeah.
moving to a new country, launching his own business. So you saw it firsthand.
Yeah, and I was my sister was before me, and then I went to college. I was the second per. I was the we're only two kids, but we both went to college. My parents never went to college. They just finished elementary school and started high school, and kind of said, it's time to work. Back in the day in Sicily, you either work or you go to school, and they chose work.
They chose work. There's an advantage to seeing that in my experience, having that type of person in your life that ran and started a business, it totally changed my perspective on what was possible in my career. My father also ran a business. And as I was going into college and through college, in my mind, the only way I was going to find content in my career and success was to also launch a business. So
Yeah.
in my mind, I didn't have an option
Yeah.
B, really. That's like what my commitment to. So tremendous opportunity there, perspective from a close mentor being your father.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the risk that you and I have is much smaller than our parents, right? My father came here with no money and not
Significantly
speaking the
smaller.
language, right? And he started a family, put a couple kids through college with my mom, and made it happen for the family. And we got a college degree. For me, it was paid for, right? And for many, it was paid for. And I think the risk for us is a lot smaller. So I appreciate that.
100%. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean you got supported financially, but just knowing that you have a loved one close by that can financially support you if you were to fall to zero
Right.
is a tremendous benefit. Like what a gift that is, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. Like we should not take that for granted. Bachelor Civil Engineering, you're focused on construction management, coming out of WPI. What's your next move? Is this when you started your construction career?
Yeah, so I went right out of college working for Whiting Turner Contracting, which is a national outfit. I started in Connecticut, in Shelton, Connecticut. They quickly relocated me to northern New Jersey. I was doing a bunch of retail projects, kind of big box retail stores. Um, did some of that. I came back to Connecticut, did some corporate work, went up to Massachusetts, did some additional corporate work, and then after 9/11, they relocated me to Baltimore, Maryland, where we did a smallpox vaccine facility after 9/11, which was quite the experience as you could imagine. It was the fastest design build project of its time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all the resources that you can imagine were put to it. There were no obstacles on permitting, no obstacles on labor, no obstacles on money. We worked nights to design, days to build. When something didn't work out, the team was brought in to the conference room, and we whiteboarded, new layout, new floor plans, new coordination drawings, took pictures of the whiteboard, sent it to the field immediately as we sketched up more formal documents so they can get going on excavations or whatever coordination in the field had to happen. So it was quite the experience, and I was probably, 28 at that time.
And are you in a project manager role there? Are you a site super? What's your role in the
I
construction
was a
company?
project manager, one of several project managers, and I had a function to play there as part of the coordination efforts. And I was there full time in Baltimore. The only time we got off was actually the day of Christmas.
The day of Christmas.
Day of Christmas.
That's a grind.
It is a
That's a
grind.
grind.
It's probably
And
90 to 100-hour weeks on average. But it was a good time in terms of just the camaraderie with people and trying to solve problems that hadn't been solved before in a time frame that was just so constrained.
that's a very unique experience because it has a different goal or a different constraint than a lot of other construction projects, right? Like usually money is a constraint, permitting is a
Yeah,
constraint, but all of those things are aligned. So it's just how do we get from A to B as fast as possible? And
right,
there's nothing else that can get in the way. Just solve the problems.
right.
And And some of that, like the value engineering conversation we just had in your typical project, you're trying to make decisions so that you don't have to undo those decisions later.
Yeah.
And here you guys are, you have an excavator in the ground and you're just starting to draw the foundation already, right? Like your kind of cart is before the horse, but that's by design and it requires a lot of management to get that done.
Right.
What are your takeaways from that experience as a project manager, that particular project? I'm sure you worked on other projects. Like, how did that experience shape your vision as an owner's rep? How did that transition?
It's a great question. Nobody's actually has ever asked me that question. It was the high performing team that was brought to the table and was developed in that short time frame. Basically, we knew that we could accomplish just about anything if we worked together. So even if we had more constraints, I think we would do it. I mean, the ability to just evolve as conditions changed and things were dynamic was just absolutely incredible, from the design team, the construction team, the owner team, subcontractors, permitting officials, mayor's office, you name it. So everybody was aligned on a mission, right? And I think you could take that alignment, and you don't have to have a tragedy like 9/11. You could just take it to your day to day. You're building a 30,000 square foot classroom, right? Treat it the same way. Everybody needs to get aligned, get on the same page, and there's a lot of things you can accomplish as a team. So I think that's a great question that I've never been asked, but that's the answer.
I love that. Alignment, I have also come to appreciate as one of the most important things you can have in life, but definitely in our careers and our jobs. Like, you want alignment with like your team, your employees, internal
Right.
at your company, but also your external partners. Because if you're not aligned in where you're going, there's going to be a headwind, there's going to be friction.
Right.
So it's a really great lesson.
Right.
Any pain points you saw in the industry? I know we're going to get into it later. You're really focused on innovation and streamlining the construction process. Like, is there anything that sticks out from this construction experience that's like a symptom or a problem that you saw like you could potentially solve in your career?
In terms of what in my general construction experience?
General construction experience, the pain points in the industry, that to share some of the stuff that was
Yeah.
frustrating to me perhaps was it's a very segmented team in how things are delivered that can create challenges, right? I shared my experience in construction. You can show up on Monday and your entire week gets screwed up and it had nothing to do with you. So it's like anything that sticks out there, because as an owner's rep, you're relying on this big breadth of experience to provide value. And I imagine going from construction right into that owner's rep field has like a really unique, gives you a unique perspective and benefit.
Yeah, I think seeing things from different angles. In that case, I was a general contractor working with a lot of different subcontractors, dealing with, architects and engineers, and seeing some of the challenges that impacted me as a project manager, as a general contractor. So I can appreciate, to some extent what everybody was going through during the process. So I just try and take an open mind to how I deal with people, with teams. And I think one of the things that you hit on is that we do work in silos in the industry, whether on a project, sometimes not always on a project. If you're working really effective as a team, you don't have silos. But in general, even after a project's done, like, we should be working together with our partner firms to help improve the industry. So I think in general, we just go back to the silos that we're used to. And we're trying to change that. In fact, we're looking to partner as we innovate, with key supply chain partners, and just be cognizant that everybody's going through stresses in their companies, in their lives. So I'll give you an example. We just happen to know that a mechanical engineer on a project had a huge backlog of just tasks across different clientele. And we just called them because we have a mechanical manager, mechanical coordination manager on staff. And I said, hey, listen, I know you're in a crunch. Tell me what we can do to help relieve your load for this week. Like, let us take some burden and maybe provide you some information that you normally would have got yourself by coming to the field. And they really appreciated that. So that's an example of working together as a team, understanding that you can't be in that silo and you have to help each other out. And hopefully they reciprocate that the next time we call, hey, we have an urgent matter in the field. We need you to get down there today, right? And I think that that reciprocity is important, rather than kind of being self-absorbed, which may be a strong word, but just dealing with your own issues every single day.
sharing and putting yourself in other people's shoes, right? Understanding their perspective and the challenges that they're facing, I think is the number one skill to learn in any kind of managerial position, because often what you're working on or like frustrating, those are symptoms of other things that are going on in the background. Right. And I think that shows the type of partner you are in Scalora Consulting Group is, because you didn't have to do that. You could have sat in the owner's rep seat and held them accountable.
Right.
But you recognize that holding them accountable when they're facing this mountain, they're in a crunch,
right,
doesn't actually help the project.
Right.
It just points blame to somebody else, but instead you find a way to help them succeed, which ultimately, if they succeed, the project succeeds.
Right. And you talked about pain points in the industry. What's happening right now is there's a lot of functional roles, right? So not a lot of people are getting the experience that I did at Whiting Turner, which was I managed everything as a PM. It was me and a superintendent on any small project that we had, and I managed the estimating, the scheduling, built our own schedule, monitored the schedule, bought out the job. You don't have that anymore at many companies. So a lot of the people are not seeing the full spectrum of what it takes to build a job. So take, for example, when you came in to do a lunch and learn, I had asked you to give us the perspective of a structural engineer, because I needed people to hear that perspective, because some of them may not see how the sausage is made behind the scenes, right, in the structural engineering world. And then architecturally, we have an architect on staff, and we said, hey, why don't you do a lunch and learn again, so you can give the perspective of an architect. What are the challenges do architects face when they're putting documents out for design, development, delivery? Like, what do you go through in the coordination? What are your stress points? So that people on our end as PMs can hear that and understand that, appreciate that. And maybe there's an instance down the road where they remember that and they help that teammate, right? And they look beyond their daily issue as a PM. So I think that's where we add value, and that's one of the areas I think we're different as a PM. We're just not trying to justify our position, blame game, process paperwork. We're really trying to build highly effective teams and support each other.
I can appreciate that perspective. And again, like I often am asking about pain points in these types of conversations, because those insights, when I see a pain point, I see opportunity. Right? There's some underlying problem that's creating that pain point that is unlike served. We're not solving that problem. So if I can help identify that, what a gift that is to a partner. Right? You might solve the problem one time on this project, but it also might be the insight that they needed to solve the problem for good for their business.
Right.
And I think that's super powerful.
Hey everyone, quick break from the episode. If you're enjoying today's episode, please send this to a friend, like, share, comment, subscribe. It's the only way we're going to help more people. Let's get back to the show.
Bentley MBA. When did you decide to get an MBA?
I think I was like 3 years out of college, and it took me about 5 years to do it part-time at night. It was challenging to do part-time, but
Part-time is no joke when you have a full job, especially if that job required 90 hours a week.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, that's really when I decided to do it. I'm glad I made the decision. And, I would recommend it to other folks, but I don't necessarily recommend getting an MBA per se if you don't have the time. But just get some more skills from a business standpoint. Maybe pick 2, 3, 4 classes that really are going to hone your skills or improve something, get you out of your comfort zone, learn something new. I'm less about now the degree than I am about, what are you going to learn that's going to be changing for you, that's going to put you in a better position in your career and your life. And that doesn't always have to equate to a degree. In fact, I don't know that, if you came into our company with an MBA, we even pay you more money these days. I don't think it's looked at that way anymore.
I agree.
I
completely align with your like an MBA, a master's degree in structural engineering in my business. Like that doesn't necessarily equate to better value on the job.
Right.
Like we care about the outcomes you can create.
Right.
And like you said, it's more about the skills. So 3 years out of your undergrad, you're working at a construction company. Did you already know you wanted to be a business owner then? What triggered you to go get the MBA?
As I said earlier, I think part of my kind of college career, I just realized I had more of a sense of the business side than the physical nuts and bolts of building. And as I started getting into construction, I started seeing the inefficiencies, the lack of innovation, the lack of trust. And I felt that in order to impact that as an individual, I needed to get closer to the client and the decision making, right? To be on the top of the pyramid. It was going to be more challenging to work up and make change than to help work down to make change. Um, and that's when I decided I needed to move away from the nuts and bolts process to the business side of things. And the natural progression was the owner's rep. And eventually I had an opportunity to start a business. And, it was limited risk and I took it.
That's great. That really good awareness there in terms of solving problems. You're seeing inefficiencies, and it's almost like you understood that you didn't have the full picture of the business yet to actually be able to solve the inefficiency.
Right.
And so you needed to learn about the other aspects of business. Something I talk a lot about and something I learned that really transformed the things that I focus on trying to build in a similar way is all businesses are 80% the same, 20% unique. And I found that I was just focused on the 20%
Right.
of my business, whereas to maximize the leverage on that skill, I needed to become an expert or proficient in the other 80%. And there was so much to learn there. That's when I dove into that daily learning habit. A lot of correlation there. Major takeaways from your MBA, any kind of lessons in that MBA program that stick out that you still refer back to today? You've been a successful business owner for 17 plus years now. So if there's something back then that really stuck out to you, that was like an aha moment.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't go back and kind of cherry pick what I learned, but organically, what I noticed is I'm starting to use terms as I kind of develop our own staff and team here. Like, what is rhythm for our business? What does it feel like? What does it look like when we're working effectively? And one of the first professors I had was an entrepreneur professor, and he wrote a book, Rhythm of Business, right? And I just made that correlation a couple of weeks ago because I was at the bookshelf and the book was right in front of me, Rhythm of Business, that he wrote. And I think that book and that class probably impacted the way I think about business and also networking on building long-term relationships where there's mutual benefit on both sides. So I think that was a big takeaway, but it happened organically. It wasn't like the aha, you know, the day after I graduated, I'm taking this piece of information, I'm applying it.
The rhythm of business. Let's talk about launching your first business, CSL. Like, did you feel the risk? Did you just see the opportunity that you couldn't resist? You left Whiting Turner, you left the construction industry, you made the decision, I'm going to be an owner's rep and launch a company. Walk us through that time.
Yeah, so I was with Whiting Turner. I was in my MBA. I was just about done with it, roughly. I can't remember the exact timing. And one of my future partners was in my MBA program, and I was talking about going on the owner's rep side. He was an owner's rep. And at that time, he worked for William A. Berry, who was a well-known construction management company that had an owner's rep group, and they were going to dissolve their owner's rep group. They ended up dissolving it, and one of the senior VPs took it to a small company called McLean Associates. I ended up joining McLean Associates. They ended up joining McLean Associates as part of William Berry dissolving the OPM group. And we were there for about a year and a half, and then that same senior VP left to go work somewhere else, and kind of put us together and said, "Hey, you guys might make a good team." We thought about it, and we made the push and started the company, and went well. Grew it to about 40 people. Predominantly in the private academic world is where we started, and kind of evolved it into the commercial side of things. But I took that for about 14 years, and like I said, 40 people, mostly in Massachusetts.
Was there a first big win that made you feel like, yes, I got this?
Yeah. So the importance of building relationships that last. When I was at Whiting Turner, I did a mall renovation for Simon Property Group in Burlington, and I worked day and night to make sure that that job was successful for them. It was successful for them. It was successful for Whiting Turner. A few years into our business, they called to help support a project from an owner's rep perspective. And we got the job. We were successful at that, and then we started doing work throughout New England on all major expansions and renovations. And we were their preferred owners rep for about 8 years in New England. So that was like, wow, we can do this.
We got this.
Yeah, we got
That,
this.
that's something else. I feel like there's always a big win for every new business owner because
Yeah,
no matter how confident you are, you really are looking for that momentum. Maybe it's you're starting the rhythm of your business. Once you hit the rhythm, it feels good, right?
right.
Nearly 20 years into leadership for you. What are your keys to success?
I think for me, it's caring about the people around you. I think you have to build that trust, and to build that trust, you have to care about people around you, care about their careers, care about their success, whether it's clients or employees. I think you have to build relationships that last. Don't look at the short-term transactional stuff. Um, I think for me is getting out of your comfort zone, always growing professionally and personally. I always learn as much as I can from other people as much as possible. So those are just some of the things that I've kind of taken with me over the years.
Learning, this whole podcast is about lifelong learning. So it's great to hear someone like yourself and operating a business for nearly 20 years, leadership successful, still learning every day, right? And trying to pass on that attribute, that quality to your team. When you think about, you mentioned caring for your employees. It's one thing to care. We all want to be good people and care about those around us. It's another to take that passion to support people and align it with business success. Right? How do you think about that balance? Because you can care about somebody, you can support them, but it's also a business or like a sports team where we all have to perform.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, as part of how I operate is be as transparent as you possibly can in terms of what the company's about, where wants to go. And then also we talk about the term inclusivity. For me, it's always been about including our people in the decision-making process at every level, whether you're an administrative assistant or project executive, we want you part of the decision making. And I think once you start seeing that process and feeling that your voice is heard, you might not have 100% agreement all the time or have your opinion be, approved if you want some sort of change in the organization. But I think you get to appreciate the opportunities and challenges that a business goes through. And then what we do is have a leadership development process where each person gets a chance to hone their own skills and kind of develop their own career path that fits within the organizational mission, in all our objectives. So, and don't make it, and what we try and do is not make it stale. Like we understand the world is changing, people's personal development changes, their interests change. How do you evolve? You don't want to just draw a line in the sand saying this is your development plan, right? And this is
Well
where
said
the
it.
organization. So,
Well said, because none of us want to do the same thing year after year for the rest of our career, right? So evolving is really important. Leadership development, there's a quote, and I believe this to be true, is a company's organization to scale is directly correlated to its ability to develop leaders.
I
I talk
completely
about transparency, trust. Those are the things that allow you to help develop leaders, right?
completely agree with that. And I think the obstacle we have, or generally in the environment, is people have a short-term attention span. Building leadership and leadership skills is a long-term path. It's not a short-term thing. So you have to be patient. You have to make tough decisions sometimes. You have to change decisions. Like I said, you have to evolve as things change. So I think for us, it's taking a long-term approach, and you need people in your organization to understand that their career is a long-term game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
hmm The infinite
And
game.
the infinite game. And in fact, if somebody asked for my advice, I'd say like stop chasing money and stop chasing titles. That would be my first point to any incoming, young professional out of college. I
Powerful statement.
never chased titles, never chased money, and look where I am today. And I think those are just short-term interests. And in the end, I see the industry having a lot of those chasing money, chasing titles, and it creates a negative long-term situation. What do I mean by that? You might have a project executive on a project that has a title but doesn't have the skill set. So from the get-go, they don't earn the respect of their team. So you kind of set them up for failure already from day one by giving them a title when they don't have a skill set.
What What a powerful lesson. And I'll even correlate that to, there's some people that have the advice, and I think statistics support that, is the person that jumps around from job to job gets the promotion or the extra pay. But in my mind, those are actually, that extra promotion or extra pay might be because of the cost of inaction from the company you're talking to. So you're just getting those bumps based on circumstance of that actual company. It's not because you're actually creating more value.
Right.
Because if you're not working on your skills and understanding how those correlate to value, you're just kind of beating the system in a short-term mindset.
100%.
Right. And that's not to say you should be sticking to whatever current company you're at. If you're in a bad spot, by all means, go see what's out there. But have the awareness to look at yourself, and are you doing the things day after day to grow, build leadership skills, and actually create value?
Right. Exactly.
I love that perspective. Well said. I'm very passionate. One of the biggest lessons I learned in business and as a leader was the importance of mission, vision, and values. For me, as a lifelong learner, I was learning all these things about business and trying to grow businesses, and I felt like I had all this awareness, but I was like, where the hell do I start? I felt like I was just in the middle, like juggling. And I had a program that taught me the importance of mission, vision, and values, your purpose, giving your team a direction where the company is going, and core values, driving business decisions, driving organizational behaviors, and really kind of guiding the culture. That was transformational for me to figure out.
Right.
You seem to have learned that same lesson along the way, because I meet a lot of business owners that don't quite understand that, the importance of it. It's very evident to me in just talking to you and looking at your branding that you fully understand the importance of having a purpose and having a direction for your team and having those core values. Where did you gain that lesson?
A lot of lessons learned, over the years, making mistakes, right? Even being in the shoes where I'm an employee working for different companies, and just not completely buying in or understanding what the vision is of the organization or the values, et cetera. So for me, if you look at like the MBA, where they teach you how to write a mission statement, I actually don't agree with a mission statement the way it's normally written. It's complicated. People forget it. They get stressed out about it. So for me, it was about, how do you keep things simple, right, for people that they can get behind? So your vision has to be bold. You're never going to achieve your vision, but you need something to strive to, something that invokes that emotion. That's something that you're going to be passionate about. So, then the vision, then the mission just whittles it down to more finite details that are more actionable, and obviously the values are the values. So I just thought about keeping it as simple as possible. That was my philosophy. So I kind of threw out the MBA protocol on the mission statement and said, no, we're not doing that. We're just going to keep a sentence or two, and everybody just needs to get something that they can get behind, and make it clear. Like, you need to communicate clearly as a leader what your vision, mission, and values are.
The most important part about a mission, vision, and values, I think, one, is that it is memorable. And it's two, that the leadership actually refer back to the mission, vision, and values when they communicate day to day, week to week, month after month.
Right.
Because if we just write them, put them on the website or the wall, and then never talk about them again, they're completely useless.
Right.
They're essentially marketing jargon that's not actually doing anything.
And then also understand that some aspects could evolve. Like, we don't refer to our values every single day, like you mentioned, but we live them. Teamwork is actually not in part of our value. You can argue whether that's truly a value, but I think, we might want to revisit our own value system and say, does that need to evolve based on where we're going as an organization? Did something change about us? But I think people, when we started Scalora Consulting Group, they just jumped on the, building a better world as a vision, partnering to innovate, being socially and environmentally responsible. It was clear to them what the company was about, and the energy it created was off the charts. I actually couldn't even imagine, the amount of energy that it would have created. It was literally off the charts.
Had a better impact than you could have ever imagined.
Correct.
Great transition to Scalora Consulting Group, building a better vision, building a better world. Building a better world. You're a certified B corporation. Could you tell us, what does that mean to you? And what does it mean to be a certified B corporation?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of look at my career and life in about 10-year increments and then break it down a little more finitely and evolve along the way. And I said, what am I, 47 now? And I said the next 10 or so years of my life, I'm going to start giving back to the people around me, to the community and everything else, and try and transform, the industry that we work in every day. And I said, hey, is a couple of percent margins on the profit side going to really impact my life? The answer is no, right? Could it impact somebody else's life by giving them better benefits, by giving them more training? I think the answer is yes, right? And I'm seeing that. So we basically decided that we wanted to balance profit with purpose, and we wanted to get behind a certification, but less about the certification than just the process and the value system. So we ended up becoming a B Corp, which, the common B Corps that people know are like Patagonia and Ben and Jerry's, the product-based B Corps. And we ended up being the first B Corp owners rep in the country. And we tried to generate momentum in the industry. We were proactive. We could be more proactive, but, CE Floyd got their B Corp certification as a GC probably 6 months after we did. And now we try and partner with them on community-based events, or where our mutual client is a nonprofit in several projects. We try and partner to help that nonprofit client raise money or raise awareness. So that goes back to not living in silos, going beyond the project, respecting the team atmosphere. So that's kind of what the B Corp helped us get to. Now that it's in kind of how we work and operate, do we need a B Corp certification 3, 4, 5 years from now? Probably not. It
Probably
just
not.
created the momentum that I think we were looking for and I was looking for.
It says a lot about you and everyone that works at the company to make that a part of your organization, your business, to make sure there's not only money but also time and purpose behind allocating to nonprofits and people in need to building a better world, right?
Right.
There's go ahead,
No,
Enzo.
after you, Renz.
I was going to say there's a quote that I love that I read from your website. It was, "Be the change you want to see in this world." I think that's a really powerful statement.
That's what we try and live by, and we try and basically say, whether it's project based or community based, if you're going to commit. We don't want you to kind of dip your toe to see, how to feel out the water. Like, jump in. Like, you have your team behind you. If you're really passionate about something, we have your back. So I think that's kind of our philosophy here. And I think, it takes some time. Took us almost 3 years to kind of organically see that team evolving, and I think it's going to continue to get better. We're very selective of, how we introduce new people. They have to have kind of similar value system that we have. Of course, we don't hire just to hire, to feed a position. I think we're very intentional about how we grow.
That's an important leadership lesson. You've obviously been successful at building a team. The words alignment have come up quite a bit. And in the hiring process, you want to be hiring for alignment with your organization. Do you share those values? Are you both passionate about the mission or the direction of the business and what you're trying to do as a team? Because hiring someone that's not aligned, it's a disservice not only to the company, it's to every other employee,
Right.
but it's also a disservice to that individual, because you're bringing them into an environment that they're not necessarily going to thrive in.
Right. 100%.
Great lesson in leadership. Differentiators. Innovation. Scalora Consulting Group focuses a lot on that. You're interested in changing the industry and helping eliminate some of those inefficiencies. Can you talk about how you see our industry of design and construction innovating, and what are you guys trying to do now?
So a few things. I think that, prefab is constantly discussed. I think it's a big win for our industry. There are companies that do it very well. I think prefab needs to become a norm in how we operate from a design and construction standpoint. In fact, if you're not starting with prefab as kind of part of your process, we're probably a little bit late. So instead of going into a job thinking conventional stick build, we should be thinking, how do we prefab things, right? As a unit, as a full holistic team, not just a sub bringing an idea to the table. The other component is bringing automation to the job site. Historically, there are people that have been like, oh, it's never going to happen. You have terrain issues, navigation issues, robots climbing upstairs. Guess what? the technology is here and it's
It's there.
evolving, right? So I think automation on the job site has to be the future. One, because of labor shortages. Two, because there needs to be more efficiencies that are carried out from the manufacturing site to the job site to help streamline processes. The other aspect is the AI. We kind of hear about it every day here. I think on the white and blue collar side of things, it can increase productivity. I don't think we talk enough about productivity in our industry. I think a lot of organizations, right, wrong, or indifferent, they think about growth and they look at, hey, if I add a person, that gets me a quarter million or 300 grand in revenue, and obviously I gain profit for that. But what about increasing productivity? Maybe you don't need to hire 20 people, you hire 15 people, right? And I don't think we're talking enough about the productivity side and implementing enough things, whether it's process improvement, technology, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm hoping with some of the AI conversations, which are still in their infancy, but also this new generation coming in, they can move the needle a little bit faster for us. Faster, but smart. Like, you don't want to just chase the sexy thing, right? And just say, I'm going to implement this AI technology and it's going to work for me. I had one of my daughters in high school was writing a paper, and the professor or the teacher used this new chatbot technology that just came out, and they accused her of plagiarism. And she had written a few papers 6 months before the chatbot got into the market, and she says, "Mom, Dad, I got this." So she made her argument to the teacher. The teacher then realized that they made a mistake, apologized to her, and stopped using the technology. And this was a 16-year-old and a teacher who had 30 years, 20 years in the business, going after something that was a little bit sexy, right? And applying it, and it impacted a 16-year-old's life, right? So what I tell our folks is, no matter what the technology is, we want to pilot it. We want to test it. We want to vet it. We don't have to have everything perfectly laid out before we implement something internally, but it has to go through a rigorous program,
I
no
agree
matter
with
what it is, whether it's a process or whether it's a technology. I think we have to vet it out and pilot it.
I want to unpack some of the things you mentioned there, because there's a lot of good paths we can go down. I'll start with prefab. What elements do you see in today's construction environment that we could be prefabbing more? Are we talking full on, let's say residential, there's the modular push, which has its own challenges, but prefabbing wood panelized walls, mechanical systems, like what opportunities do you see that are the low hanging fruit that every
We've had
job's?
success in panelizing wall systems. I'd like to see more of that. I like to see more of modular. I think the modular industry could have done a better job marketing it, that type of system better early on. For example, more often than not, it's not a cost savings, but it's a schedule acceleration, and that's where you might achieve some cost savings. So one for one, it's not a cost savings. So I think how they sold the modular system could have been different early on in the process. You do have more modular companies coming out. I am looking at 3D printing on the commercial side. I continuously am optimistic about it. It's slow moving, but if you can 3D print, on the industrial side, it could be game changing for those investing in warehouses, distribution centers. It is happening on the residential side with Icon, who's got quite a bit of backlog, from what I understand, doing single family homes and two-story homes. But I think 3D printing could be another thing that we look at in the future. But the prefab, I think just doing some more of the prefab panels, external and internal. If you're in a renovation setting, prefabbing a lot of internal wall systems would be a big win for our entire process. I don't think it's done enough.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Productivity. You're absolutely, when I look our industry and beyond our industry, you always hear good talent is hard to find. Good people are hard to find.
Yeah.
And then when you see the data, the financial data of companies at large, majority of companies are extremely inefficient for the number of people that they have. And they would be far better suited to focus on improving their productivity before they worried about hiring more people, or whether they have the right people at their company, the alignment piece.
Correct. I
Right?
completely agree with that. That's why we have a lot of development programs here internally. We spend a lot of time with our staff both on the job training, both developing new training programs, spending time working together as a team and individually, leadership development programs. All that has a tangible impact, not only on productivity, but at customer service. But again, it is not a short-term thing. You have to be patient. You have to be patient.
Absolutely. 3D printing. So you mentioned, I think I've seen videos of 3D printing on single family homes. That's ramping up. You see 3D printing like actually printing the structure of a warehouse? Or where do you see it?
Yeah, there is a company, probably more than one, but the one that I know of down in Texas. And what's happening though for venture capitalists, in talking with some venture capitalists, they like obviously a faster return on investment. And just to get like building officials on board with commercial products and approving permits and code related issues becomes more challenging. The structural integrity of that, building a two-story structure out of concrete or whatever the material is going to be, it's probably more challenging, right? So from an investor to get behind that is probably a little more risky. But the technology is gaining some ground, and it would be nice to see, at least on the industrial side, for something like that to get implemented in the next 5 years or so.
That's a good insight on the challenge, though. Venture capital, for those unfamiliar, the typical capital call in venture capital is a 10-year window. But 10 years to invest, develop, get code approval to be building buildings from a printer is probably a tall task. So it needs patient capital to be able to get there.
Right.
Really good insight. Any projects stand out to you? I know one of your differentiators you talk about is net zero costs. And I think that is a great mindset just for an entire team to understand. And Enzo, I'll let you explain net zero costs so that I don't put words in your mouth. But when you say net zero costs from your team, what do you mean?
So what we try and promote when a client comes to us is that the cost of our service is going to be net neutral, because we're going to add value along the way, and we can convert that value to a dollar figure, right? And we don't do that by beating up a subcontractor, GC, or an architect under fees. That's not the primary goal of whatever we do to get net neutral. It's how do we collaborate with those team members to bring value. And two examples is we went into an interview process with Independent School in Western Massachusetts, and I think they had like a 3-year process from design to construction. And we did an analysis, looked at different options, changed the procurement method, theory, and we said we can cut a year off your schedule and we can save you $2 million. And here's how we're going to do it. And we were the first ones on board, so we were able to build a team around the idea that we needed to accelerate schedule and save money, right? So at the end of the day, we pretty much saved close to $2 million and accelerated the job by a year. And that was 5 times the cost of our services as PMs, right?
It's a
and
good
we
return
didn't
on.
do it. Yeah, if you talk to the GC and architect, we didn't do it by beating them up on change orders. We did it by setting clear alignment, clear goals and expectations, getting people in the right places, letting them do what they do best, and being able to solve problems collectively together as a team. That was like a unicorn project, and we're getting repeat business from that. But that's the clear advantage there. Another one on the simpler side is we had a client that had preferred vendors, 50,000 square renovation, had a preferred furniture vendor, and they had some budget problems. And we said, well, we can get you the same quality by changing the vendor and changing the supplier, changing the manufacturer and changing the supplier. And they agreed to it. We proposed the alternative. They walked the subcontractor's facility to the supplier's facility. It ended up saving them about $300,000 just in the furniture package. So that was a net zero on our cost, essentially, right? So those are just some things. Like, we don't want to do things for the sake of doing them just to prove our worth. We want to show the value, and in showing the value, there's cost savings.
That's having the right partnerships in the industry and awareness to what's possible, and then aligning those two things with the needs of the client.
Right.
Really good insights and in a good mindset for any business owner, right? You want to make sure anytime somebody hires your business, you want that to be looked at as an investment, not a cost of doing business.
Exactly.
It's an investment to create value.
Exactly.
There was some big news in Scalora Consulting Group this past year. 3 senior leaders were promoted to partner. This tells me, one, a lot about you as a business leader, one, that you have an abundant mindset, and also means you have growth in mind. So would you share with our audience what's in store for Scalora Consulting Group over the next few years?
Um, well, I think that what we want to do internally is have sustainable growth. And for me, growth for the sake of growing is not really a sustainable thing. So what does that mean? Maybe you have like a 15% top line growth, that's 3 or 4 people a year from a body count, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 clients added a year. So we're not looking to like double the size of the company in a couple of years or even 5 years potentially. It's like what's smart for us, what's smart for our people, what's smart for our clients. Because again, we're in a long-term game and we want to take care of everybody in that supply chain. And even our partners, Renz, we're building a relationship. We want you to be successful in the engagements you have with us and with our clientele. So for us, it's really about what's sustainable. We've been fortunate enough that a lot of our clients here in Massachusetts have taken us outside of Massachusetts, although most of our work is still in New England. We have an office in Ashland, Mass. We have an office in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And one of our clients brought us to Nashville, Tennessee, where we opened a satellite a couple of years ago, and now we're adding more clientele there as well. Um, we're in other parts of the country, even in San Francisco, doing an office to lab conversion for a developer. That's more remote. Uh, in the long term, I'd like to be in like the Raleigh Durham area as a satellite office. So you
Like that
have some
part.
good coverage, where you can fly in, fly out as an owner, as supplement some staff locally if there's good growth in those areas. But inevitably, our clientele, I think, will take us there. I'm not the type of person that says, "Hey, I'm going to hire somebody for a couple $100,000 and sell, sell, sell." I want our clients to organically take us somewhere, and then launch that as an emerging office.
That type of mindset coming into growth, there's a few lessons here. One, you're clearly growth oriented. You're always learning. You're always trying to improve. Company growth doesn't necessarily, it's not only measured by top line revenue. Like you're saying, you don't need to double over the next few years to feel
Right.
successful, but you're doing the things that improve the sustainability and the predictability of your business, which is a form of growth. You're
Right.
stabilizing, you're trying to improve, create value. Growth will follow. You're not chasing the dollar. You're not
Right.
chasing the title. You're
Yeah.
doing the things that you know will attract those things in the future. And for that, I'm really confident in the future of you and your team.
Appreciate that.
Enzo, thank you so much for joining us today. I've enjoyed getting to learn more about your path as a leader and business leader. We'll leave the audience with one last thing. What is your top book or podcast that you would share with everyone?
Team of Teams by General McChrystal is a book that was written, and I like military leaders because of the course correction that they have to go through. Lives are at stake, right? You could apply those to business. Um, and then Amy Edmondson wrote Innovation Through Teams. Those are two books that I think were created change for me in how I look at things.
Love those recommendations. General McChrystal, hope I said that right. I've only seen a few speeches of his, but every time he speaks, it really resonates with me. So Teams, that's a book I should definitely read. Enzo, thanks again for joining the design development community. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Hi, everyone. Real quick before you leave for the day, if we could ask one favor, if you enjoyed today's conversation, if you're enjoying all the conversations on design development, please share this with someone that you think will benefit from it. Our goal is to help as many people in the design, development, and construction industries. And with your help, I think we can spread the word and help more people. Thanks for tuning in and can't wait to hear from you next time.